You know, Bill, there's really nothing they can do about the fact that we're snowed in, so why don't we just sit down and wait patiently?
Sorry, my friend, I don't play that game. Oh, she won't worry. I mean, I'm here and... Oh, these cookies! I gotta get the recipe from Les.
Put that cookie down!
There will be no surrender. There will be no mercy. All organized scum must die.
Yeah! Bomb them all the way back to preschool.
Regard estimates organized scum strength at 16.
There are very few people in Hollywood as talented as Phil Hartman was. He was an artist, could do impressions, an amazing actor, and to those who knew him, one of the nicest people. Behind the nice family man demeanor hid a dark truth, a troubled marriage, which ended in tragedy.
Oh, so we think that's funny, do we, Officer Davis? Well, maybe we'd all like to know what's so funny.
Phil Hartman, for all of you of a younger generation, was the type of person that if he put his mind to something, he would master it. Born on September 24th, 1948, he was the fourth of 8 children. His parents moved from Brantford, Ontario, Canada to the United States when he was a young boy. They bounded around the states a bit, from Maine to Connecticut, to finally settling in Los Angeles, California. Phil was a class clown, having grown up in a family where affection was sometimes hard to come by. He decided to draw attention to himself in more lighthearted ways. He studied art at Santa Monica City College before dropping out to become a roadie in 1969. In 1972, he went back to college as a graphic arts major, enrolling in California State University in Northridge. While in college, he got by with his own graphic arts business. He had done the cover art for albums by the band America, and came up with Crosby, Stills, and Nash's logo. There are more that he has done, 40 and counting, but I wanted to give that as a small example. Hartman was talented, young, handsome, and charming. In the 1970s, he was even on the dating game, which he won, but the contestant decided not to go on a date with him. While working long hours in art, Hartman would actually entertain himself by doing funny voices and impressions. That is just an interesting trivia note. No one told him to pursue acting or comedy at that point. No, it was when he decided to go out to be social that he discovered how entertaining he could be. In 1975, he began attending evening classes with the improv comedy troupe, the Groundlings. The Groundlings have had success in launching careers of those who were involved in it. Will Ferrell, John Lovitz, Paul Reubens, and a lot more came from the Groundlings. 2 of those names I mentioned became friends with Phil Hartman around this time. Hartman got into these classes because he went to one of their shows, and when there was a break in the performance, he got bored, went on stage, and decided to put on his own performance, which impressed everyone. To get into the classes, people normally had to pay, not Phil Hartman. He paid his way by doing artwork for them for free. After several years of working on the Groundlings, he decided to venture out on his own, working mostly with Paul Reubens, who is Pee-wee from Pee-wee's Playhouse, which Phil wrote for the show and starred as a character named Captain Carl. He wrote the script for Pee-wee's Big Adventure, but the two had a falling out in the late 80s, and they would never speak to each other again. Besides Pee-wee's Playhouse, Hartman had small roles and cameos in the movies Jumping Jack Flash and The Three Amigos, as well as voice roles in cartoons like Dennis the Menace and The 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo, as well as others. While he was slowly taking off as an actor and comedian, his love life wasn't anything special. In 1970, he had married a woman named Gretchen Lewis, but they divorced in 1974. It wasn't because he was a philanderer or a cheat. He would fall in love with someone quickly, but soon would lose interest in the relationship. In 1982, he fell for a woman named Lisa Strain, who he would have a 3-year marriage to. While this one ended because he was emotionally distant, he always considered Lisa his soulmate, something that stuck in the craw of his 3rd wife. In 1987, he married Bryn Omdahl. I will get more into that relationship later, as this is the wife he would have the more turbulent relationship with. But for now, we have a lot more of his career to look at. It is important to note that he had written for Saturday Night Live before he was a castmate. Paul Reubens had been a host at a point in the 80s before they fell out. He wanted his own writers to do skits for the show. Hartman was the writer he chose. During this time in SNL history, the show had almost been canceled. Lorne Michaels had took time away and the ratings had plummeted hard. Reubens' appearance was one of the higher rated of the season. Yet while SNL staff were impressed by Phil Hartman's writing style, they passed on him. Yet in 1986, Hartman would become a member of the cast.
All right, boys.
Just stop in here for a second. I'm a little parched from the jog.
Sir, we've only been jogging for 3 blocks. Besides, Mrs. Clint asked us not to let you into any more fast food places.
Well, I just want to mingle with the American people, talk with some real folks, maybe get a Diet Coke or something.
Lorne Michaels returned to SNL as its showrunner for season 11, though that season didn't do as well. So for season 12, he only kept a handful of the cast and looked for those who could fill in the gap. John Lovitz was a part of the cast in 1986 and recommended Hartman to Lorne Michaels. Hartman would audition and would immediately get added to the cast for season 12. This was a huge break for him, as he was able to show his ability to write comedy and do impressions. He did impressions of Presidents Ronald Reagan and Bill Clinton, as well as other famous people. In fact, his Bill Clinton impression was what made him more famous. He also created characters like Unfrozen Caveman Lawyer and Eugene, the Anal Retentive Chef. Hartman's contributions to SNL were not just in front of the camera. He was helpful to his castmates behind the scenes. He helped some get over stage fright. He gave his advice when it came to their skits. Lorne Michaels stated of Phil Hartman, "He kind of held the show together. He gave to everybody and demanded very little. He was very low maintenance. He was older than most of his castmates, so he became like their older brother. He was considered the glue that held the show together. But by 1993, he had seen many members of the cast come and go, and he felt that he had done enough for SNL, and he wanted to try something new. So that season of SNL would be his last." He had been in talks of doing his own variety show called The Phil Show, but it never got off the ground. But in 1995, an opportunity came to do a sitcom, and he jumped on the chance.
Matthew, you talk to him.
Okay, fine.
Good.
Yeah, I will. Good.
Matthew, turn around and go back to your desk.
In 1991, he began voicing 2 characters for The Simpsons, Lionel Hutz, a lawyer, and a B-movie actor down on his luck called Troy McClure, whom you might remember because his catchphrase was, "You might remember me from," and then go into things he had been in. Hartman was also in a hell of a lot of movies in the 90s. House Guest, Coneheads, So I Married an Axe Murderer, Sergeant Bilko, Jingle All the Way, and Small Soldiers. Some of these he had major parts, like Sergeant Bilko and Small Soldiers. Others were just cameos for friends. But in 1995, he began work on a sitcom called News Radio, a show where he pretty much was the star. But it also starred Joe Rogan and Andy Dick. That's right, before Joe Rogan was pissing people off with his podcast, calling UFC fights, or even asking people to eat bull peens on Fear Factor, he was actually pretty funny. Hartman was making around $50,000 an episode. All he had to do was play an arrogant, loud, and obnoxious character, which he was really good at playing. Though News Radio was never a huge hit, it was critically acclaimed. In front of the cameras, the world saw a cheerful, charismatic, and fun-loving man. In many ways, this was not a facade. This was how Phil Hartman was. But hidden behind those cameras was something else. A marriage that would ultimately be the death of him.
No.
Were they
Talked to Gretchen on the phone. Never wanted to meet the second one.
were they as beautiful as Bryn? No, not in her league. I can't imagine leaving her.
His future wife, Bryn, had come from Minnesota to Los Angeles to try her hand at acting. Bryn was a model, but as soon as she found herself in LA, she found that not everything was the high life. She had gone from being a large fish in a small pond to a small fish in the ocean. She met Phil in 1986 after being set up with a blind date with him. And to say the least, Phil fell madly in love with her. But his friends all thought that he and her were not good for each other. They would bicker, break up, and get back together. Yet Phil loved her and no one could change that. In 1987, they married as she was pregnant with his son. Though you can find the names of their 2 children online, they are private people. I'm going to honor that by not naming them on here. They have been through enough. They don't need some weirdo talking about their parents' death saying their names. But back to Phil and Bryn. The marriage was not what you would call happy. Bryn was intimidated by Phil's success and felt frustration that she could not share the same success. While he was on SNL, she was home taking care of their child. When he transitioned back to Los Angeles, she was at home taking care of both of their children as they had a daughter later on. She could be jealous and verbally abusive towards Phil. When his ex-wife Lisa wrote a note congratulating them on their firstborn, Bryn snapped, wrote a letter back, and threatened Lisa with physical harm if she ever came near Phil, Bryn, or their child. Hartman knew of this letter and told Lisa the letter that Bryn wanted to write was a lot worse than what she did write. Though Bryn was feeling like she was nothing more than a housewife, Phil did try to get her some acting roles. But Bryn developed a dependence on cocaine and alcohol, something that led to more fights in the household. Because of her dependence, Phil would threaten to leave her and take the kids away. At times he did leave with the kids to stay with friends when she was off the rails. Bryn would get clean of cocaine for a long period of time, but her alcohol dependency continued. She suffered from depression, so she was given Zoloft by a doctor to handle it. Zoloft and alcohol do not mix.
I'm glad you could stop by because I have some exciting information about Lori Davis's new product, Exciting Hold.
Bryn had been clean from cocaine for close to 10 years, but at a Christmas party with the cast of News Radio, a scene unfolded that some say happened, while others say didn't happen. Andy Dick is pretty much known as the most strung-out person on the face of the planet, and on that night, Bryn asked him if he had cocaine. According to some, Andy and Bryn went to a bathroom, shut the door, locked it, and did cocaine, which incensed Phil. While Phil himself liked pot, he couldn't stand harder drugs, and fights between the couple were mostly due to the drug use of Bryn. But to Bryn's defense, she was going through a hard time. Phil bought a boat and spent a lot of time on it. He also bought a plane and was learning to fly. He was emotionally distant with his wife. She felt that her life was not what she had planned it to be. She felt as though that she was losing everything. Phil confided in Joe Rogan the issues he was going through in this marriage. Joe suggested a divorce, and it seemed to be heading that way, until the night Bryn killed Phil, and then turned the gun on herself.
Because he was such a great person and close friend, and he was there at the very beginning of the show.
On May 27, 1998, Bryn went to an Italian restaurant with a friend named Christine Zander. Christine was a writer, formerly of SNL, but at the time she was working on Third Rock from the Sun. According to Christine Zander, Bryn was in a good mood, drinking, and seemingly high-strung. Zander had a feeling that Bryn was high on cocaine. While Bryn and Phil had a small argument earlier that day, it wasn't anything serious enough to cause her to go off the handle. But coming home, after drinking a lot, high on cocaine and Zoloft, supposedly an argument did take place, which Phil did what was normal for him. Phil had a habit when he was in a heated situation to just walk away. He went to bed, leaving his wife to stew in her frustration. Whatever she was feeling in those moments are uncertain. As Phil lay sleeping, Bryn entered their room, holding in her hand a .38 caliber handgun, her own gun, one that Phil was happy that she had, as he enjoyed collecting firearms. She aimed the gun at her sleeping husband and fired 3 times, hitting him between the eyes, in the throat, and in the chest. Phil was dead before he woke up. Bryn freaked out at what she did and called her former lover and best friend, Ron Douglas. She asked to come over to his place for the night. He said no, but she put her gun in her purse and drove over to Ron's home. She was frantic as she told him that she killed Phil. Ron at first didn't believe her, calling the Hartman home only to get no answer. It wasn't until the gun fell from her purse that everything became real for him. He asked her why she did it, and she said she didn't know. Knowing their children were there with a dead body, he took her back to her home. Ron followed her to the bedroom where he saw the dead body of Phil Hartman. Phil looked as though he was asleep, but bullet wounds and blood gave away that he was dead. Bryn got on the bed with Phil and began crying. Ron called 911 and tried to return to the bedroom but found it locked. Instead, he took the children outside as the police arrived. As the police entered the home, they heard a second shot. Bryn took her life. What caused her to snap is a mystery. She didn't even know why she was mad to begin with. In her system was found alcohol, cocaine, and Zoloft. Her brother ended up suing Pfizer, the maker of Zoloft. The Simpsons retired the characters he played, only them appearing in background cameos since 1998. He was set to play the voice of Zapp Brannigan in Futurama, but because of his death, the role would be filled by Billy West. On News Radio, his character was killed off screen, stating a heart attack killed him. He was replaced by John Lovitz, his good friend. There is one last part I need to discuss when talking about this. People put the blame on Bryn's downward spiral on one person, Andy Dick.
Good night! I'm like, shit. And I run back up. Hey, Andy Dick, everybody!
Ooh.
And John Lovitz is slamming Andy Dick against the wall in the lobby.
There are many reasons to hate Andy Dick. He's an asshole. He likes to sexually harass people. But I will say, he doesn't remember giving her cocaine. And I honestly do not think he is to blame. His attitude towards it needs to change. But blaming him for the actions of Bryn Hartman is unfair. John Lovitz blamed him for the longest time, but then stated he didn't blame him anymore. The two had a feud, which in 2006, Andy Dick approached Lovitz in a restaurant restaurant, threw a glass of water on him, and proclaimed, "I put the Phil Hartman hex on you. You're the next one to die." Lovitz had Andy escorted out and banned from the restaurant. Then in 2007, Lovitz and Dick had an altercation at the Laugh Factory, which ended with Lovitz beating the crap out of Andy Dick. Andy also went on the Tom Green show and talked about it. Here's the whole clip.
And
See,
you know
I
what?
think what's going
Oh,
on.
here's what. You can put this on YouTube. Whether I gave Phil Hartman's wife cocaine, which I don't know if I did or not, it's, you know, it would be like if I died tonight because I asked you for coke and you said, yeah, I happen to have some that my friend gave me. Yeah, here, go, do it. And you didn't know I had a problem, or you're like, oh, he must always do it. He's fine. It's like his vitamin C.
Right.
It's vitamin to him. He needs it. And then you give it to him, but I die. Would you think you killed me?
Can I say no comment? I don't know. No, I guess not. No.
No,
I wouldn't.
you wouldn't think you killed me.
I've never done coke. I'm from Ottawa. You know, I think they do coke.
Oh,
in
you're
Ottawa
gonna do
now.
sometime. No, I'm just kidding.
I think they're doing coke in Ottawa now.
No,
though.
I don't. I stay away from the hard
I've
drugs.
never tried cocaine myself.
I stay away from the hard drugs
I can't
now.
Yeah.
But believe me,
Yeah.
that's why I stay away from them now. And my point is that, look, if you're looking to, if you're looking to get drunk, you're going to go to a bar. If you're looking for drugs, you're going to go to somebody who you think has blow. So, you know, she is somebody that night wanted to get high, and she, oh, he must have it. Do you have any? Yeah, maybe I do. And then that happened, and I didn't know anything about her past. I didn't know any of that. And then she didn't die that night or go crazy that night. Months went by, almost a half a year.
Yeah.
And then she went crazy. I was already in rehab.
He does have some good points, and I do not think that he was the cause of Phil Hartman's death, but his actions to John Lovitz should be noted that he is what his name says he is. He's a dick. Phil touched a lot of people's lives. He was a family man, a man who took every opportunity he could. He was a trailblazer, and so much to so many people who met him. No one has ever said anything bad about Phil Hartman. His death was a blow that comedy has not recovered from yet.